Albers, and welcome here to the Big Guy Sports Podcast on USBN Sports. And I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, we got a really special guest here tonight. Phenomenal track star. We got some information today, and I didn't realize some of the stuff that he accomplished in his high school career. Then we'll find out about college. But I'll tell you what, Jeff could really get it done on the track, man. He was a phenomenal athlete.
Well, I tried to imitate Jeff, but I just couldn't keep up with him. So Jeff Justice was just a phenomenal athlete, as you said, and a great runner. And when I got to train with him when we were a couple years younger than him in high school for soccer, and I was just doing everything I could to keep up with him, and I just couldn't do it.
Right.
He was that good of a runner.
Yeah, so it's going to be awesome to kind of get in. And I've never understood the whole, the meters and all that, stuff. I never understand all that. Yeah, never could understand all that. So it's like I never run it. So, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. But as I said, joining us here is our guest, Jeff Justice. And Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Scoot in a little bit, Jeff. So just let's go back to the days. Let's talk a little bit about growing up in Anderson, and we always talk about Steve, what side he lived on. So kind of get back to where you grew up in Anderson and some of your friends or anything like that.
Okay, I grew up on off of Wolfangle, Washington Circle, a little small house. Had my 4 brothers and my sister living at the house with us. It was across from the Beachmont Mall, Aladdin's Castle.
Yes.
Oh, you can walk there.
Walk to Aladdin's Castle. Spent a lot of money there. So walk to school. It's about a mile.
Wow.
I remember back when I was a kid, we would go up and play baseball up at IHM.
Yeah.
Soccer, things that they don't do now.
Exactly.
Fortnite now. My son likes Fortnite.
Yeah.
So I grew up, the Freezes lived there. The Crows, I don't know if you know Alex Crow.
Sure.
Mark Freeze, Matt Freeze.
Yep.
Ron Woodruff was a good friend.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up. Brian Glenn, Jeff Dalton.
Yeah.
Those guys. We go to Kingpin.
Kingpin Lanes, yeah.
Somebody mentioned that in the last podcast about living off of Asbury and wanting to know if King Quick was still there.
Right.
So my question is, you said you walked to school. I don't believe that. I believe you ran to school probably, right?
Well, at that time, running wasn't in my blood.
Really?
That kind of happened when trying to think here, going back a long time.
Yeah.
Back at Finneytown, when I ran my first half mile. It was a summer track series I ran.
Okay.
And I wasn't in real good shape, but my dad took me out there, had me run it. I ran a 2:05.
Okay.
The first time I ran a half mile. So I realized then I was a sprinter early on in my high school career with Steve Holder, was a senior at the time. I don't know if you all know Steve Holder. But he was one of the guys, the Farr brothers. Some of these older guys left an impression on me, but I realized real quick I wasn't really a sprinter. I was more of a middle distance guy, especially after I ran that 800.
What grade were you then?
Freshman.
A freshman?
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. So, obviously, we're going to get into all the records you set with track, and then you played soccer also. Was there anything else that you played that you had interest in growing up? Did you play baseball? Or?
I played baseball.
Yeah.
With Craig Bosey. Mr. Bosey was our coach.
Nice.
And he always gave it.
Old name.
The bunt sign was the handkerchief. He'd bring the handkerchief out.
Will you bring it out? That was the bunt sign?
Yes.
No kidding.
So they caught on to that after a couple innings.
Who else was on that team?
Brian Glenn, Steve Purden. Greg Owens, Jeff Schemenauer, I think. He went to McNick, I believe. Who else was on that team?
What was the name of that team? Do you remember?
First Financial.
Yeah. Yep. I
was on a team called New Sash before that. I believe Jim Bolger was the coach.
Yeah.
On that team.
I think you're right. Yeah. I remember a lot of guys. Well, they had a couple different age groups of New Sashes.
And we were on that team that beat you when you were Lucky at Strazzle, if I remember correctly.
See how he brings this up? He still holds that from that far back.
I was a really good pitcher when I pitched for New Sash, but Mr. Bosey changed my way because I threw kind of sidearm. I couldn't throw a strike.
Really?
And he left me out there for an inning, and I walked probably 15 batters, and I said, I'm done with baseball. I got to find another sport. So they helped me ease into track a little bit.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of your, let's go right into the track part of it because obviously, people don't know, but Jeff excelled at track in multiple ways. And, we were just reviewing today all the records and accolades that, Andy Wolf, had for you. Talk a little bit about some of the records that you had set. Do you remember any of those records you set? Because most of them are still alive today.
Yeah. Last time I talked to Coach Wolf, there was one record still standing. That's probably when they dedicated the track to him. How many years ago? I know. I actually ran in that race when they dedicated that to him.
And, that's cool.
So I got up to the front because I was in pretty good shape. I trained for it. I didn't want to look like a fool. And I looked over, and
this guy used to be a runner, of course.
He started the race, and when he saw me, it was worth the training that I did. And I think I finished 7th in that race. And
is that right?
Went on that night to dedicate the track. That was really cool.
That is cool.
That was probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Andy still is a special person.
One of the records I know that I think that you had, it still might be the school record. I'm not sure. You ran a 4:15 miles. Is that correct?
I did.
Is that still a record? Or is it?
It's been beat twice.
Wow.
Is that right?
Sean Profit and
Nick
Vogel.
Remember Nick Vogel? I remember Sean Profit.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that blows me away about that, I remember this is funny, for football tryouts, getting excited that I could do it under 6 minutes. And here he's doing 4 minutes and 15.
He lapped you twice.
I mean, it's just incredible, Jeff, that anybody honestly can do that. And you had that record for a while, I'm sure for a while there. And then, and what was the other one he had? Didn't he have a couple other ones that?
Yeah. What were some of the other ones, Jeff?
I think I had the 800 record for a while, and the 2 mile, 3,200 meter relay record.
Yep.
I would have had those records would still be standing if I didn't run on that cinder track.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about that.
Because Andy Wolf was mentioning that too. In some of his comments. So, what was your favorite event?
Probably the 1,600. The
1,600
mile.
Mm-hmm. Wow! But you originally started off as a sprinter.
Yes.
Okay.
I ran the 200 and the 400.
Yeah. Well, there's so much history with Anderson Track, and still have the records. And there's been some great runners that have come through there. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Andy Wolf had told in his story was a story about you were such a good sprinter early in your career, and he thought that it would be best to move you to the law. And your dad kind of said, "Hey, you think that's a good idea?" And he goes, "Well, I want him to be the best in the city, not just the best at Anderson High School." And I think obviously that worked out well that Andy did do that.
Yes, no doubt.
So let's talk a little bit about the legend of Andy Wolf and what he did for you and what he means to you as far as, because he has touched so many people over the last 40 plus years, and what he meant to you, because I know you mean a lot to him.
Right. Well, just when I went to that race and saw him there and caught up on things, and then that night we went to the dedication, and Vern Hopkins was there. He was the first record holder at Anderson. Then Coach Wolf was next.
Okay.
Coach Shields.
Yes.
Which one? Mike?
Mike.
Okay.
Yes. Then myself, and then Sean Profit and Nick Vogel.
Okay.
We were all there that night and got a picture taken.
That is so cool.
Do you have that? Do you have that picture?
I do, yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. And the other thing, his daughters got up there and talked. And I knew he was dedicated to coaching. He's still involved.
Yep.
But I didn't really know the extent until that night. His daughters, they spent nights in Anderson, getting ready for the relays the next day. They'd spend the weekend sleeping in the classroom. So I just never really, I just saw him at the track practices and the meets, but all the behind the scenes stuff, I really didn't have an idea until.
Wow. Well, yeah, a lot that goes into it, and he changed not just the culture, but just probably around the city. Wasn't Anderson the first one to bring in the steeplechase?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, just stuff like that people don't know about.
Right.
And
that was with the new track, not the cinder track. You don't want a steeplechase on the cinder track.
Oh man,
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine that.
What were you going to say about cinder track, Dan?
Well, that's what I was going to get ready into. Obviously Steve and I, we were, real close to same age and all that. And so we got to experience that cinder track, whether it was through tryouts or whatever we had to do. But talk about that. I mean, a lot of people don't know that that's all there was back in the day was cinder tracks. Talk a little bit about the challenges of running on a cinder track, especially when you have horrible weather.
There was a picture of me floating around somewhere running on that, and it kind of just spoke volumes of just puddles.
Yep.
The cinders were, sometimes there were divots in it wasn't smooth. I never wanted to be a hurdler when I ran because if you fall over,
there it is.
Yep, that's it. But if you were a hurdler, Jeff Dalton was a hurdler. Rob Langford was a hurdler. So I guarantee you those guys have cinders, and they're still to this day in their knees.
Oh, I can only imagine.
But it was it was rough. And then when I graduated, Kroger came in and they got that new track. I think it was the very next year.
So the records that you set, and I mean, how much of a difference do you think that would have made if you were able to run on a surface like what's there now?
Probably several seconds.
Is that right?
Seconds.
I mean, I would think so, but
right. Oh my gosh. It is amazing. I mean, and you think about that too with not only track, but then you think about the field, like the football field, like going from grass to the turf, and so I'm sure it makes a difference in a lot of that stuff. But I can't even imagine you setting the records that you did on that cinder track.
Yeah,
I mean
it's almost like there needs to be an asterisk or something.
Right,
that this is
that cinder track.
Cinder track.
No, I agree. So obviously you had the chance to run in the state meet, and you were in multiple events. How challenging was that for you to be in multiple events? I know you were in the 4x8. 4x800, is that right? And
yes.
What was some of the other ones? Just talk about how challenging that was for you to do multiple events in a state.
It was the 800 and the 1600 also. It was tough, Then if I was just running one, it makes me, would I have placed higher or not? But then if I would have run one, it would have been, what could I have done if I'd have run two or three of them?
Right.
But it was, Coach, getting back to Coach Wolf, he never really pushed anything on anyone and said, you're going to do this and this and this. He would get your input and never push you too hard. He wasn't a screamer. He was a good teacher on the track, as good as a history teacher he was in the classroom.
Yeah. So real quick on that. So I guess I don't understand, like at a track meet, so when they do that, so how often, if you're running those events, do you get in between each one? So like if you're running, do they do that earlier in the event and then mid-event? I mean, how does that all plan out?
There's qualifying typically, and then the race there might be, it's been so long since I've run in a track meet now, but you might have the 800 and then several events, boys and girls. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you have
some time to get, Okay, I was just curious at that because that's kind of crazy.
You had time to eat a Big Mac. That was my diet back then between races. Nowadays, it's totally different now. So.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Oh, funny. So in 1984, you graduated, and I didn't realize this, but I guess your team was pretty special. And you guys you guys went to state. Right. And you had some guys that did very well as you did. Talk a little bit about some of the guys that were on your team for that year and what you thought your expectations were for that team.
I thought we had a team to win state. Wow. We had Bill Riffle, pole vaulter.
Yep.
Rob Scott was another very talented pole vaulter.
Okay.
Rob Langford, Jeff Hamilton in the high jump.
Yes.
Oh, he could jump.
Yes.
We had Denny Mitchell, Ed Graybill, Chris Burt. I think he was the top 3,200 meter runner in the city his senior year.
Okay.
Or maybe it was me. I can't remember. But him and I were
maybe it was me.
Him and I were neck and neck.
Yeah.
Chris was one of the guys that was my competition on the team.
Yeah.
So he made me a better runner, and I think I made him a better runner. And we caught up at a class reunion probably about 4 years ago. And he looks great. Looks like he runs, he works out, and
good, nice, good for them.
We had a good time, and the best part was he saw me and I saw him, and
knew right away.
And he's like, you were the one I was hoping would be here. So
Yeah.
it was very,
Oh wow, that's really
awesome.
very cool. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So in that state meet, you ran in the 1600. I mean, did you run any other events for the state meet?
the 800
Did you?
and the 1600.
All right, so the 1600, as it goes by the Hall of Famer Andy Wolf, he said, from his view, he thought that was the best race of your career.
Really?
Yeah, and then he went on to talk about how, in which I'm sure it was cinder. I would say cinder blocks, cinder track then, but he talked about how everybody was clumped. It's so funny he can remember this like it was
Right.
yesterday. How everybody was
I'm
clumped.
glad he can.
Yeah. He said everybody was clumped and you had to hang around on the outside, which he thought that made you run. He figured out an extra like 25 or 30 yards.
Right.
And, he was just thinking, if you were able to get, in front of that pack or whatever, it would have cut down on the amount of,
Right.
and that could have,
That's not good when you're running out in the further lanes.
yeah, just further. But you still finished. Would you finish then? Fourth
I
or
think fifth.
fifth
I think so. Yes.
in the state? Yeah,
Yeah, but
not too many people can say that.
And the other thing that he said was, and it was only a few seconds off too. So it was all that, like you said, that big bunch was all together.
30 yards and only off by a few seconds.
That's incredible to think about that, though. So, I mean, just a phenomenal, track career. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's very, very impressive.
Andy Wolf told us another story too about not participating in cross country, obviously because he played soccer.
Right.
And then you joined the team in November, and the season, I guess, at the end of the season was over. Kind of doing some training. He said you earned a junior Olympic All-American. Talk a little bit about that and how that all kind of played out with the cross country, because he said you would have been phenomenal in cross country.
I before I came over here, I got in my closet to see if I had any remnants from
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Yes, we love to see this. We love props.
I didn't even know I had this.
I love the props.
Look at this.
Got my Anderson.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
And
And it still fits.
it still fits, and I think this might still fit. I didn't even know I had this. This is the name of the team, the
Oh wow,
Oh,
Queen
that
City,
is cool.
Queen
Hold that up
City
there.
Striders.
Look at that.
that is cool.
And show the patch here.
And the
What's that
patch is
say? All-American.
cross country All-American. We went to Omaha, Nebraska, and ran in probably 6
Wow.
inches of
How
snow.
cool is that?
That is really cool.
So I didn't know I had that until just
Really?
coming over here. Yep.
That is cool. I mean, so how did that I guess getting into the cross country part of it, was it? Did you really like? I mean, did you like that a lot going into the cross country part of it? And was it a challenge right off the beginning, or did it take a little bit for you just to get used to?
I was in pretty good shape just
Yeah.
from soccer, but I wasn't in love with cross country so much as track, but I was good at it. I didn't like it when I was in college, though.
Really?
Cross country. It got a little bit. It was a little different, a little further distance. But I loved the experience with the Queen City team. A couple of the coaches. We went to Beckley, West Virginia, for a meet.
Yeah.
And it was different kids from like Coleraine that made up this team. Chris Burt was on it.
Wow.
But those are some great memories.
I'm sure that's pretty cool. I mean,
So was that like a club of like all the great runners in the city?
There were the better distance runners in Cincinnati made up that team.
so kind of like a Midland of baseball, like
Yes.
Midland of running
Track, yeah. Wow.
So let's talk a little bit like life after Anderson then. So what was your, like getting recruited for, running, and talk a little bit about how that whole process worked out for you.
Okay. I got letters from just every college, ton of colleges, but I want to stay close to home. I told you guys before, my dad passed away when I was 16. Then I started really dedicating myself toward running. That was my out. I ran a lot right after that initially it happened. So once I started getting letters and putting some feelers out there, I visited. I went to Tennessee and visited. I went on a visit to Wright State. I thought that was great too. I'm going and they're taking me around in their car.
Right.
Coach is showing me where I'm going to be eating in the cafeteria, where I'm going to be sleeping, and then I went to UK and visited UK. And I went to Rafferty's and had dinner with Mark Nenow. You guys know who he is. But he was an American record holder in 10K at one point.
Yep.
I know Coach Wolf and all the other runners know who he is.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there eating dinner with this guy.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, there's my decision's made.
There's no contest.
I'll be going to UK. So that's how I ended up. I ended up at UK.
Wow. I mean, it just, that whole experience had to have been just unbelievable. I mean, just to go there, experience the college life, but also, you know, as a college athlete at UK, I mean, how was that for you? I mean, was it pretty cool?
They make it easy for you as an athlete. I know some of the big schools at UK.
Yeah.
They help you as much as they can, should I say. They get tutors for you if you need them.
Right.
Which I utilized whatever tool I could. Coach and I, after 3 years though, we didn't see eye to eye. He was like a Bobby Knight of UK. And
so opposite of Andy Wolf.
yes, he was very demanding, but you know, he had workouts, and when we would complete a workout, I remember one of my workouts there was we had to do 20 400s in 60 seconds with my teammate Russell Nally. It was a relay, so I'd run it in 60 seconds, hand the baton to him, he'd run it in 60 seconds. That was our rest, 60 seconds.
Wow. You had 1 minute.
So we did that workout
20 times,
and we were both about ready to get sick.
Yeah.
And he's up there with a bullhorn saying, "Did you lose your contact?" or saying something like that.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments like he'd give you tough workouts. He was tough, but I went back 30 years later. There were some regrets on my part. Was I left early, and I was going to run for UC. But then I thought I'm going to get on with my life.
Right.
And so I didn't run it. I didn't run my senior year.
Okay.
But I did go back to UK a couple years ago. I'm still in touch with these guys. They had a 30-year get-together for their cross-country team that won the SEC championship.
Oh, wow.
If I would have stayed, I would have been on that team.
Oh, geez.
I was. Yeah. So that's a regret. But to get to see those guys, I had roommates from England, and Richard from England came over, and again, when he saw me, we went to Keeneland, and then we went to the game the next night.
Nice.
It was just great seeing these guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And did you bring a UK jacket too?
This is one of my mementos it's my letter jacket from UK.
Look at that.
Look at that.
That's impressive.
Sweet.
So that's got some miles on it too, but you know, my legs have taken me places. You know, I have no regrets. When I ended up leaving UK, I followed my wife. She came up to Cincinnati. Went to nursing school.
Awesome.
And then I got into nursing school after a year.
Okay.
When she was in. So, but I was a little scared because I have to study on my own now and have tutors writing stuff down for me, giving me a test beforehand. So that was kind of tough, but I made it, and it's been a good run.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So, not to diminish, your career with track, but I want to go back to one that I know more about you, and is when you played soccer at Anderson. And I just remember how not only just great, unbelievable shape. I'm not going to say phenomenal, Danny. You've already said it 5 times.
I said a lot. I know.
So, but the teams you were on, were really, really good. When you played soccer, and I just remember how fast you were. And again, I was just trying my best to imitate you, because I wasn't very skilled. I just wanted to be as fast as Jeff Justice and run down the field. But talk a little bit about playing soccer at Anderson, because, let's go through some of the names that you played with as well. But talk about playing soccer at Anderson.
My sophomore year, I think I was on varsity my sophomore year. I'm not sure I didn't get a whole lot of playing time. But junior year was Reed Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie McClellan. Bobby Hayden was the goalie.
Yeah.
Who else? Ron Woodruff.
Yeah.
Wolfson was on the team at the time.
Mark Wolfson.
John. Roberto was on it. Yep. Wolfson scored a lot of goals because of me, though. I was the guy that would get the ball to him.
I believe it.
Guys on the outside, crossing the ball in.
Yeah, and he was the guy who would do his little weave through there. Yeah. Think about it. Some of those guys were huge, too.
McClellan.
Jamie McClellan.
They're both big, yeah.
Yeah. And Woody, Ron was pretty good size. Yeah. Yep. Tom Benedetto. I mean, Johnny Withrow.
Yes.
That's who you're thinking of. Johnny Withrow. Who was the other one that moved in from Seven Hills? Dave Carroll.
Yes.
Dave Carroll.
They're just phenomenal. Anderson soccer back in the day was the thing.
Oh, it was so fun to go watch you guys play.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another state. We should have won state.
It was, I mean, just the back line in itself.
Right.
They were huge. Larry Ayre back there.
I have never been able to find that guy.
Is that right?
He's disappeared.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So, I know a lot of people that don't know you wouldn't remember or know Coach Philpott.
Right.
But quite a character he was for the short time he was there. Talk a little bit about Coach Philpott.
He was had a temper. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
But some of these half times he would get in people's faces and literally be almost foaming at the mouth.
Is that right?
Yeah.
With his Australian accent?
Yes. Yeah. And then Coach Hopkins, I believe, was.
Yeah, Randy. He was a JV coach.
Yes.
That's who I played for. Yeah.
And he was the opposite of Philpott as far
Quiet
as
and
character and demeanor.
yeah.
But he was very passionate, Coach Philpott.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of remember Hopkins. I do and I don't, but I thought he coached girls.
Well, he did switch over to girls after we left.
And was he? I mean, was he a pretty good coach? I mean, was he?
He was kind of like the guy that Philpott never got any of us crying, but he was the one that put the arm around you and say, "Hey, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be all right."
And what about that? What year was that when you guys should have won state? What was that?
84.
Was it 84?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a really good team, and that was back when St. X was always really good, but they still are.
Finneytown was always good back then too, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what did you guys? How far did you make
Just
it then in the
battles.
tournament?
We lost to. I know we lost to Walnut Hills one year. That might have been my junior year.
Yeah. Just trying to think.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, it was really good teams then.
Playing up top by the baseball field up there.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That was the place. Because it was much harder. Again, talking about the cinder track, but down on the football field where it had the crown. You're doing corner kicks and you can't see the goalie's legs because
right. Different times now.
Yeah,
definitely crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, you had obviously played soccer all the way growing up and
started. They had the Rockets, the Queen City Rockets.
Yep. Remember that?
They were a year younger than us, but we were called the Meteors. Nobody ever heard of the Meteors, but I thought we came before the Rockets did.
Okay.
But I played on it was a select team called the Rockets.
The Rockets.
Played a lot of soccer, and I thought that was the sport that I was going to play, and played as long as I could, and then track kind of
took over.
They had just started like the club teams back then, which was getting more people into
right.
Because it almost dissected people from playing other sports.
Right.
And I guess you must have loved it or loved playing with all the guys. Especially in your class, as opposed to giving it up and running across country, you must have really loved soccer as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't give up soccer. I mean, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people in the stands watching some of those soccer games against the rivalries. And you look up in the track stands, it was my mom yelling and my dad when he was around. That's pretty much it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your family.
Okay.
And I know you said something about my mom, but I grew up on Forest, and I remember your mom working at Air. And, I can say this safely now, 45 years later, that I don't know if she did this for anybody else, but she would always slide a cookie to me so I wouldn't have to pay for it.
Really?
Oh, Frida, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and she was my favorite.
Really?
Obviously. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sounds like her.
Yeah, she did it all the time. And she remembered me years later, too. But talk a little bit about your family. And I know, so you're the youngest, right?
I am.
Okay, so because I know you got twin brothers and other siblings, too. Talk about them.
I have two older sisters, Kathy and Candy.
Okay.
Kathy passed for breast cancer.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
my other sister, Cindy, she's in town. Mark and Scott are twins.
Yeah.
And then my oldest brother, Stephen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know Brad, my older brother, is pretty good friends with your twin brothers.
Right.
And they're always like a comedy team.
They haven't changed. they want to get together, the four brothers, and go to Florida. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Uh-oh.
I've never done anything like that with them. And, so it may be a one and done for me.
Well, all right, so let's talk a little about your personal family and where you're living and the kids you have and what they're all into.
Okay. I have Garrett. He's 29. He lives here in town. In northern Kentucky, in Fort Mitchell.
That's okay. It's still in town.
I have Alyssa. She is in town. She's married with a baby, 1-year-old.
That's great.
Went out and got a mini golden doodle because she needed that right now in her life.
Of course.
And then she found out after that they're going to have another baby in May.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So her husband's really thrilled about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's life-changing right there.
Right. So, and then I have Ashley, who lives in Georgia.
Okay.
With her husband, Nick. And they just went out and got a golden doodle the same time my other daughter did.
There's a theme.
Oh, yes. My goodness.
And then I have Garrett, Grayson. He's my 12-year-old. So
Okay.
29 down to 12.
Wow.
So people ask me, said, "Oh, you had an oops baby." I said, "Well, I had 3 oops babies, and then Grayson."
That's funny.
But I've never had a runner in the family.
Really?
They were all soccer players.
Really?
At Covcath and at Notre Dame Academy is where my older ones went. And then Grayson's at St. Pius. He's a basketball and a football player.
That's great.
That's awesome.
He's the field goal kicker on the football team.
Really?
Really?
There you go.
I said,
There's soccer into
how
it.
did you get that gig?
Yeah.
He said he was horsing around before practice, and they were kicking the ball, and the coach saw him kick and said,
Yeah.
"You'll be the field goal kicker."
Really?
He did a really good job for him this year.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
So what grade is that?
what
Is
is
that
it?
6th?
7th grade.
7th grade?
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously we'll be seeing highlights on Friday Night Football Frenzy or whatever.
Yes.
We're seeing him kicking some field goals for
That's right.
Covcath.
That's
Possibly
right.
basketball. We'll see.
He'll go down and play for UK.
There you go. Possible player that you can get for UC Claremont.
That's right. Bring them on. We'll
Yep.
take them. So going back, we've talked about a lot of names from high school. Are there any of those guys that you still keep in touch with, or anyone that you don't remember?
Other than that reunion I went to,
Yeah.
I really don't keep in touch. I know I reached out to Chris Burt several times, said, "Hey, come down, let's get together." And
Yeah.
it's just everybody's so busy.
right.
Yeah. And you said that reunion how long ago? A couple years ago?
That was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was a good turnout.
Was it well
Good turnout.
attended?
It was fun. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I had a lot of pictures, like.
Oh, I remember
photo
seeing
moments.
this.
Yeah,
You
I
did.
probably put a lot of them on.
You did on Facebook. I remember seeing them. You
Right.
were, I remember seeing that.
Where do they have it at?
Where was that at? That was down Belterra, wasn't it?
It was down at it used to be AJ's down by River Downs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it kind of moved up to what's that place that's closed now in the town center? Bar Louie or something.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's closed now.
Yeah.
So we went up there and
Well, that's cool. Had
a good time.
Yeah, that's
and Jeff
awesome.
Dalton was another one that I've been trying to
Get a
send
hold of.
text to, and we were going to because he was another guy that
he's a fireman, I think. I thought he was a fireman.
I think at one time he might have been. I know his
Okay.
brother was involved also
Okay.
at the fire department.
Yeah.
You know what's great about these things though, Jeff, is that we've had where we've put these on, our my USBN page and then YouTube and all that.
Right.
And we've had people that, hey, oh my gosh, I'd love to get a hold of him. You got his number. And so maybe these guys will
That'd be
see
great.
that and, they can get in contact with you because we actually had 3 guys that we interviewed
Right.
from the 70s that were all down in Arizona golfing and they made a comment about the podcast and everything like that. So hopefully
That'd
maybe
be great.
some of these
somebody-
guys will,
Yeah.
Right.
Was it like 5 or 6 years ago? My daughter was playing soccer somewhere. I forget where it was, and I'm like, man, this referee looks so familiar. And it was Ron Woodruff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know he does a lot of reffing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And as we all age a little bit, and I looked at him, and he looks just like his dad.
Right.
Really?
He does.
Yeah.
I was driving home one day, and I was coming down Beachmont Avenue, and I thought, I'm going to go. I know there's still Mr. Woodruff still living there.
Oh.
I'm going to knock on his door and see if he remembers me. So I knocked on the door, and he just looked, and he said, "Jeff."
Oh,
So I went in
wow.
and I talked to him for probably 30, 40 minutes. and
Did you really?
Caught up on some things.
That's great.
He looks the same, too.
Old Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is crazy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So obviously being in town, do you follow the soccer program or the track program much? I know you're in town, so you get to do you follow that much or
They don't have. Well, it used to be the newspaper. I'd look
Right.
at.
Yeah, there's nothing.
They'd
They don't
have
do
all
that
this
anymore.
listed,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I'm just not on. I won't say I'm not on social media, but I don't see.
all that stuff? Yeah. Well, the soccer team was excellent this year.
Once my record got broken, there's no.
That's it.
No need to follow.
I'm out.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So the soccer team this year went. They were undefeated.
I did know they were better this year.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So they did really well and they got knocked out in
Districts.
Yeah, so but
Yeah.
they had a pretty good season and track's always good. It's right here. Is I got this list here that was sent to me by Adam Zabo, who is one of the track coaches, and he's
Yep.
got a list of records here. So there's if you can take it if you
Yeah,
like.
I'd like to
It's
look at it. Okay.
it's pretty neat that they sent that. So. But look, we're going to go ahead and try to wrap it up here real quick, and we always wrap it up with talking about some of your favorite high school memory, favorite college memory, and then either your favorite teacher or coach or something like that. So, what was one of your favorite high school memories?
Probably.
You can say prom.
What's that?
You can say prom.
I didn't go to many. I didn't go to many proms and dances and stuff just because my mom was going through a rough
Right,
around
right.
that same time.
Yeah.
And track was my pair
Focus.
of running shoes were my
Yep.
was
Yeah.
my
Yep.
That was your date.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Date for the night, right? But I think that going out to Omaha,
Oh,
that's a
oh, yeah.
memory.
Absolutely.
And just being on that soccer team. I remember Joe Dayton and
yeah.
Brian O'Rourke.
O'Rourke, yeah.
Yeah, those two guys. Some of the things they would do before the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Crazy.
can't get into that.
No.
Yeah, but just good times on the track team. I remember going up to Nagel. Nagel School wasn't there; it was a
Nagel
park.
Park,
And one
right.
of our workouts would be it'd be tag, and somebody was it. They'd have to tag somebody, and whoever was the last one standing won, and it'd go on for like an hour and a half.
Oh,
Until the last one was caught.
sure.
But that was Mike. Mike Shields was another big, huge
Right.
influence on me.
Yeah.
Just a super nice guy. The people I've met through high school and the teams I've played on are just lasting memories.
Yeah. No question.
And the college one was it? That was there one in college then too, or is it anything that sticks out in your mind with that?
Probably the Kentucky relays when I ran there. The year Andy Wolf came down.
Oh,
That's cool.
I laid an egg in that race.
Really?
I ran a better time in high school. So the following year, I wasn't going to do that again. I ended up placing. I think I came in second. But there was they used a Kentucky track brochure, and it's still hanging down and somewhere down in the locker room in Kentucky for track
Nice.
of me and Russell Nally with our Kentucky jerseys crossing the line, and I ran a 4:05 in that race there.
wow.
So
That's
So
incredible.
that improved your time from high school.
right.
That's crazy.
4:05.
That is nuts.
Oh,
But
my
it takes me 4:05 to get out of bed.
Yeah. This is true.
That is crazy.
Wow.
No, that's some awesome stuff. And obviously said Mike Shields and obviously Andy Wolf are some influence that you had. And
What about a teacher?
yeah, any good teachers?
Bruce Griffiths from
Yes.
middle school,
Yes.
Yep.
and he was our football coach. too.
Yes.
The only year I played football.
Did you play?
I did.
Is that right?
Was that the-
You got your middle school book right here.
I do, but I haven't even looked at this, my cheat sheet. But we were playing Turpin, and we were losing. I think it was 6-0.
Yeah.
And we were down to like just a couple seconds, and they just said run to the end zone, and Bosie threw the ball. And it was a perfect pass, and I caught it, and I think we missed the extra point where we ended up tying. And I thought there was a play named after me.
Really?
Is that right?
Yeah, but he was just a super cool guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's on Facebook.
I still
Yes.
see him from
Yeah.
time to time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's definitely. What else you got on your cheat sheet there that we've missed? You got anything good on there that you want to talk about or bring up? Because I'm sure we've probably missed something.
I think it's. Yeah, it's pretty much.
We pretty much covered everything. Well, that's good.
Well, you said you met my mom somehow.
Oh, yeah. So we used to run 10-mile run to Woodland Mountain Park and back. That was
Okay.
one of our distance workout. So we'd run down Forest to get to Woodland Mountain, and I was running back, and your stomach starts knotting up, and you feel like, okay, I got to use the restroom here. And I knew where you live, so I knocked on the door, and your mom answered, and I introduced myself. Proper introduction, and I asked, "Can I use your restroom?" And that's the first time I met your mother.
Wow.
No kidding.
She saved the day.
She saved the day. Was that on the way to
was the way
Woodland
back.
Mountain? On the way back. On the way back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alice was awesome. Alice and Billy were awesome.
She was greeting you at the door.
Yeah, they were great people. Jeff, it's been awesome catching up with
Thanks
you.
for having me.
And Jeff, just so everybody understands, Jeff drove from Kentucky to be here in our studio, so it was awful nice for Jeff to come over here and join us. We always love when people get in studio instead of doing the Zoom because it gets a little bit more personal. But it's been awesome catching up, and I know that Jake Andreatis was very excited that we were having you on, and Andy Wolf was too as well, and Steve Andreatis, another one. So I know these guys are going to be very excited to check into this and see what's going on. So it's just been awesome to catch up with Jeff.
No, I was looking forward to it as well, and for Jeff, because like I said, I knew Jeff more about playing soccer, but I knew how unbelievable he was at track. And so, as life goes on, you have kids and you're busy, even though we're not that far apart, but we just haven't seen each other in a long time. So this is why we love to do this, Jeff. And so we really appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so that's awesome. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Jeff Justice, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you next week.